Welcome to the Yanagida Podcast show, episode 35, ladies and gentlemen. It is crazy that it's already episode 35, and I'm with special guest today. We got Malika Dudley in the house, who's a two-time Emmy nom, two-time SPJ Science Award, and a meteorologist with KITV 4, ladies and gentlemen. So, Malika, welcome to the show, and could you share with us how did all of this happen for you? I've been watching you do all these interviews, but also all of your background with your karate and all these different things as a super mom. How did this all happen for you, Malika?
Where should I start? Do you mean professionally?
Yeah, let's start there.
Okay. So I've had a very strange journey. It's not the typical journey to becoming a meteorologist and a journalist. I went to UH Manoa, graduated with a double major in French and speech communication. And I was, at the time, I was running for Miss Hawaii. And I didn't make it the first time. I was fourth runner-up. And then the second time, I don't know, I just was super focused and it ended up happening for me. And I was 1 year into my master's program in the speech communication department. And that was a crazy year. And when I finished that year of Miss Hawaii, I just felt like I needed to work because it was a volunteer job. I could barely pay my bills. And it just felt like, okay, I need to make some money so that I can survive. So I was, and I was lucky enough to land a position as a French instructor for elementary school at Le Jardin Academy on Oahu. And so I was co-teaching with a friend of mine, and we taught kindergarten through fifth grade. We had 350 students, and we would go in and out of their classrooms. And that was so rewarding. I loved that job. My mom's a French teacher, so.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Kind of came naturally. She taught at the university level though, so this was very different, and there was no no curriculum. So I had to develop a curriculum, which was challenging, but also really rewarding to see the kind of progress that the kids made. And I just happened to meet, I guess, the right people at the right time. It was at a nightclub at, I think it was Sky. Yeah. And Guy Hoggy and Chris Archer, the news director at the time, and a bunch of people from KGMB just happened to be partying up there.
Dang. Wait, so what year was this for the people listening? What year was this?
Probably around 2006.
Got it.
2006, 2007. Yeah, around that. And so, it was Sky Waikiki time.
Yeah. You know? Waikiki time. Oh, man.
And so I remember Guy Hoggy taking me into a corner, and, I had some random conversation with my dad saying like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. Maybe I want to fix cars or go to culinary school, or maybe I want to be on TV. And he had somehow mentioned this to Guy Hoggy. And so Guy takes me aside at this nightclub in the dark into a corner and says like, we are starting a new morning show and we're hiring people, and your dad told me that you have an interest in television, and so I thought I would let you know. Let me introduce you to our boss. So he introduces me to Chris Archer, who's the news director. His wife was the marketing director, so I met her too, and I got his card, and I kind of like sat there with his card for like maybe about a week, just thinking like what do I do with this?
Right, what do you do with it?
In my French teacher office at Le Jardin Academy, I end up writing him an email and saying like, hi, I met you at Sky Waikiki. You gave me your card. I don't know how to proceed, but I'm interested. And so he gave me the time of day, which it still boggles my mind to this day that someone who was a French teacher, had just come off of being Miss Hawaii, relatively new graduate, if you will, to that they would even, that they wouldn't just look right past me. And especially after he wrote me back and said, hey, why don't you write me a VO, a 30-second VO? And, you can come in, you can read it for us, and we'll do an audition, and we'll just go from there. And I write back, what's a VO? About how long is 30 seconds? Can you give me an example of what that looks like? What's the AP, the Associated Press? I mean, I
Right.
had no knowledge at.
That's incredible.
It
Yeah.
was actually quite
Take it back.
incredible. He
Wow.
wrote back. Yeah. He was the best boss I've ever had in my entire life. And
Wow.
this, I think, illustrates that, because he
Mhm.
wrote back and he gave me a description. He said, here's an example of a VO. Another email
Right.
was, here's about how long 30 seconds is. Another email, this is an Associated Press article that Kim wrote this email from. And so I wrote, but I mean, I didn't know how to write for news.
Wow.
I had no experience. And so I wrote whatever he asked me to write. And I came
Mhm.
in, and I'll never forget it, because I came into the studio and they had Keahi Tucker sitting behind the desk.
Oh, Tucker. Yeah.
And I'm going, you need to sit next to him. Right.
Oh, wow.
And they did. They had me sit next to Keahi Tucker.
Yeah.
Keahi read a VO, and then it was my
Mhm.
turn to read what
And
I
your
wrote,
turn.
which was
Wow.
terrible. I mean, it was not written for news. It was way too wordy.
Mhm.
But then they had breaking news come into the prompter. So they put breaking news and something about tsunamis. And my dad's a tsunami expert, and so I was able to kind of like
Kind
jive
of go
into
with it.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
go with the flow. And then they threw me on a weather wall, and Jeff Booth was the weekend weather anchor at the time, and he was sitting beneath the camera, and the camera is backwards, right? So if you put your right hand up, it looks like your left hand is going up. And
Right.
I'm dyslexic with left and right, so that didn't bother me at all.
There we go.
But I don't really watch TV. I still don't really watch TV.
Right. Same.
And I wasn't really a weather like enthusiast, or I didn't know anything really. And so I'm standing there and I'm looking at the screen, and I'm like, and I'm mic'd, by the way.
You're mic'd up.
I'm mic'd, and I go,
Yeah.
Jeff, what's that? And he's like, satellite. I'm like, oh. So the satellite shows the clouds. And then I would like walk to the other end, the other way. Hey Jeff, what's that?
Oh my God.
Radar.
Radar.
The radar says blah blah blah. and then they had surf pop up, and I'm a surfer, and so I just kind of went with the flow with surfing, talking about, I think I said something about ankle slappers, or I don't know what it was, but we had 3 or 4 meetings with Rick Blangiardi, who's now the mayor of Honolulu, but at the time was the general manager of KGMB, and Chris Archer. And, in my 4th meeting, I remember them saying, we have this box of overqualified candidates, and for some reason, we keep coming back to you.
Wow.
And they said it was Surf Report and the word ankle slappers, and just, and I think it was a little bit also that my resume showed that I'm a hard worker, so I go for it if something is presented. So that is how I got into news.
That's incredible. Like going back from that to now. I mean, because I remember seeing you maybe like 10 years ago, but that OG 06, 07, were you always a natural on camera? Like just good to go, or was that kind of like a practice? Because I know you had your Miss Hawaii.
So when I was Miss Hawaii, I did do a couple of on-camera things, but I wouldn't say I was experienced. And when they hired me, they said, we're going to give you 3 months of practice. And so I was full-time, and I would come in and I would shadow Jeff Booth, Guy Hagi, and I guess at the time that's all they had, because there were only evening shows and the morning show. So we didn't have all the newscasts that we have now, and so they need more staff. But so I would shadow them, and then I was forced to go to the I don't even remember what those rooms are called, but it was like a room where you could put the tapes in and watch the videos. And so they would have me go in with someone of a higher rank than me, which was basically everybody. But, it was usually like either Stacy Lowe or Kiaki Tucker or Guy Hagi or my boss, Chris Archer. And I had to record whatever I felt was my best. I would practice for hours, and then I would record my best. And then we would sit there and we would watch it, and they would critique me. They would give me constructive criticism. That lasted 6 weeks instead of 3 months. And they were like, okay, you know what? We're putting our new sports anchor on the air. And so we just thought, you know what? You're ready. Just we'll throw you both on the same day.
There we go.
Yeah, that guy was Mike Cherry. And
Mike Cherry.
Yeah, if you remember him, I love Mike. I love Stacy. I love them all. They're just they've been such amazing friends since then, but we're amazing colleagues and so supportive through the whole process. And so Mike and I both debuted on the same day, and I talked way too fast. I have the tape. I should probably find it.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I had times when it's a learning experience, and when you are live, it's not forgiving at all. And so you end up having to learn the lesson to be forgiving of yourself, because there was
the quote. Dang. That's the quote, Malika.
I like it though. Yeah, I remember this one time. I thought that it's normally flipped, but I thought it was flipped from flipped.
Flip from flip.
Yeah, and so I was going like this, and for some reason my brain was not connecting, and I looked confused on air. But I didn't have the wherewithal or the experience yet at that time to know that I could just walk off screen and continue. I stayed on screen.
On the screen.
The entire time, looking entirely confused and I couldn't figure it out. And I didn't have enough, I guess, just confidence, or didn't know myself well enough to be able to just stay on air. Like, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm having an issue with my weather screen right now.
That's it.
How about we try this again in a few minutes, or
Man, that's incredible. Yeah.
So, I mean, gosh, here it's been 10 years. Like you said, it's been like more than a decade. And so I had technical difficulties one day where I had no graphics. Like I have this iPad, and I can advance my graphics. I create them all myself from here at in my home studio in Pukalani, Maui. And it froze right before going on camera, and they talked to me, and it was so much easier to deal with to just be like, hey guys, you know what? My weather computer just crashed. So here is my weather graphic. My weather graphic is my backyard. What I can tell you.
That is incredible.
Blue skies, we've got puffy clouds, and was able to just kind of roll with it. So I can definitely see that over time, there was a lot of progress made.
It's incredible.
Progress.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely a journey, and you don't know what you don't know. So you just have to keep at it. And as long as you keep at it, you learn more every single day. And I think that's something that I'm trying to teach my children. It's something that I'm still learning to this day. When I get overwhelmed, is to step back and go, okay, what can I do today? What can I do today? Like, don't get overwhelmed. Just today I turned in an assignment for grad school, and disappointed myself because I could only read 4 articles. But I sent it off to her, and I said, to my committee chairperson, and I said, I'm sorry, like I wish I really wanted to do more. And she wrote back, that progress is progress.
I love that. Progress is progress. And it's just incredible, because when people think of you, Malika, I think people love the fact that you're, very authentic about the weather and the clouds, and hey, this is my backyard. I mean, I hear that all the time from people. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, did you see that? Malika was in her backyard and did the clouds and that. Nobody does that, nobody does that. And that I just want to acknowledge and, commend you for that. That's just so inspiring, just from being able to just lead with what you got, roll with the punches, and lead with authenticity. I mean, that's just something, and I think something that's going to be really valuable is what you just said about when sometimes we all feel unfocused or something happens or we disappoint, and you said you take a step back. Is there something that you do in that process where you're stepping back, you're doing something, you're listening to something, or what does that look like for you?
When I fail, you mean, or when I'm faltering? Because I think those are two totally different.
Right. What about faltering? We'll go faltering.
Yeah. I think faltering is a lot easier to deal with than failure. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when you falter, you're trying something and it doesn't quite work. And it's
Mm.
like, okay, that's right. I can try it a different way. um, and I think that we deal with faltering all day long on a daily basis, so today it would have been great if we started with meditation in my family and then did a little bit of movement, and if I drank a giant glass of water and did all these things that I really that I know I should do, and that
Mhm.
we do at times when
Mm.
we are on our game, but allowing for to give yourself grace for the times when it just doesn't happen, or maybe it's not
Mhm.
possible. So my office is a complete disaster right now. I mean, if you could see what my floor looks like, you know it's it's crazy. Like,
Mhm.
the image that people probably have of me on the outside is not
Mhm.
what my floor looks like right now. And but it's okay.
Uh,
I try to give myself grace in those moments
mhm.
and remind myself and remind others,
Mhm.
when friends or whoever comes to me, followers come to me with some of their issues, that we are all human, and we all make mistakes, we all falter, and that's not a reflection on who we are. It's just in the moment that
Mhm.
maybe didn't work. And that's okay. That's okay. You always have the next moment to make a different
Mhm.
choice, to make a different decision. And now you have some information about what
Mhm.
doesn't work. And
What
so
doesn't work?
if you change your perception to look at it from that viewpoint, it
Mhm.
helps you with moving forward and being able to say, okay, that was informative, instead of, wow, what a failure.
Right. And see, Malika, that is such a rare mindset quality that you have. Like you're always taking the perspective. Something happened, it's it in the positive light. Okay, how did this benefit? What's the lesson? Where did that come from? Was that from like your years of in your career or somebody in your life or family, or because that's really rare that when people say like, you know what, something happened, didn't go the way it did, here's a lesson from it. That's because that's beautiful.
I think, like many people,
Hmm.
uh, I was on autopilot for a really long time. So, on the outside, when you see like, oh, I achieved this or I achieved that or whatever, there was so much focus on achievement that I kind of feel like I lost my way as a person when it came to like personal development. And you wake up one day and it's like, what am I doing? Why am I not happy? Why am I not happy on the inside? When everything seems so perfect on the outside. And I think reaching that point for me, that realization that like something had to change, was the turning point for me. And that's when, and I've had a lot of mentors in my life, but in the last couple of years, when you have a family, I have children, it's not as easy to have access to, for example, when you're in school, and one of your professors can
Mm.
be a mentor, or if you live in a multi-generational household where maybe your dad or mom or your grandparents can be that mentor for you, or maybe you work in a company where your boss or another colleague is a mentor for you. I didn't have any of that because I was working from home and really focusing on building my family. And so I found it online, and ironically, it
Mm.
was through an Instagram ad is how it
Mm.
all started.
Wow.
So
That's
weird.
amazing.
Yeah. And so the way it happened was I did this thing called 19 for 2019 with my girlfriends, and we
Uh-huh.
wrote out 19 things that we wanted to see happen in 2019.
Mhm.
And it wasn't meant to be a goals list. It was more of like this brainstorm of like what could be, so not so uh, structured as like a New Year's resolution list where you can
Mhm.
easily start to fall into that trap of going, oh my gosh, I didn't do that, I'm such a failure. It was more like, wow, look at the possibilities, and if any of these happen, how wonderful. So
Mm.
I made my list, and on that list was work on my memory. I have a
Memory.
Yeah, I have a terrible memory. I No, it's so like I think there could be something wrong with my like medically. And it sounds funny, but it's actually the truth. And I feel so badly about it
Oh.
because I don't remember people's names, and sometimes I don't even
Mm.
remember their faces. And
Mm.
it is very concerning to me. I know I meet a lot of people, but at the same time, I, because I'm so invested in people and in relationships,
Yes.
it's something that's just very, I feel like I have to fix it. And so this Instagram ad was from Jim Quick, who is,
Hey, love that guy.
yes, he's like,
Have you read his book, Limitless?
he sent it to me, and
Oh my gosh.
I'm just at the beginning, but
That is awesome.
yes. So it was
Wow.
Jim Quick, and
Jim
it
Quick.
was like it was an ad for Mind Valley Academy, which is
Mm.
like online personal development website, where basically I feel that that's where I found my mentors, because
Mm.
I didn't have mentors in my life because of the way my lifestyle and the way I was living at the time. And so now Jim Quick and John and Missy Butcher and others became
Wow.
my mentors. So I signed up for these programs, and my husband and I would listen to them every night, and they're kind of bite-sized pieces. They're like 5 to 20
Right.
minute videos, and we would
Mm.
journal, and I could see myself making progress just as a person, and my awareness of who I was and where I was at and what I wanted in life. And that's kind of what started the ball rolling. And you're saying
Wow.
like, oh, it's so rare to have my viewpoint, whatever. That actually, it's I'm not positive all the time. I am not
Mhm.
able to be in that space to recognize, ooh, like, well, that was a failure, but don't worry. Like, you'll be fine. Use that as a learning experience. It doesn't happen all the time, but at least I have the awareness now to be able to check myself. It doesn't mean that like now I don't feel anymore, and I'm not sad or disappointed or angry or upset at times because things falter or people aren't treating me the way that I would hope or whatever it is. All of like the messy mess of life still happens.
Mm.
And sometimes I can deal with it better than others, but because of these mentors that I found online, they've given me the tools to be better prepared for those moments.
Wow. And that was in 2019, you're saying? Wow. I was just gonna ask you because you have a bunch of books in the back, and I love books too. And like, what are one of three books that have greatly influenced your life? I know you just showed us Limitless, and like for instance, for me, it was a book by a gentleman named Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence Others, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, Tony Robbins books. What are one of three books that have really, I guess, influenced you?
For sure, Dale Carnegie's book, when I was running for Miss Hawaii, that was one of the books that I
Yeah.
used strategies on
Mm.
my judges. I'm not sure though it was coming from the best, but granted, I was young, so I have to give myself grace for being young and not having learned those lessons. It was really very self-serving to use
Mm.
that book, and I think in the way that I did, it worked. It was great, but at the same time, I look back on it and I'm like, oh gosh, I really wish I knew myself a bit better in those moments. But for
Mm.
sure, Dale Carnegie's book, which also is why I feel so awful about not being able to remember people's names because it's so important.
The important.
But I have to say the Four Agreements.
Four Agreements. Oh, yes.
One of my favorites.
Yes.
Such a simple read, really quick. It's an easy book to go back to and revisit. And, there's four agreements.
Four Agreements. There we go. Yeah.
In any problem, usually one of those agreements will help me to change my perspective and kind of work through. And then I guess I like reading people's biographies.
Okay.
It doesn't even matter who it is. I just finished reading Kevin Hart's biography, Tiffany Haddish's biography. But I think we can learn so much from people's stories. And so I really enjoy that. And I have my journal out just like I do for, Limitless and other personal development books. I have my journal out, and I love to write down the advice that I'm learning from, they become mentors too, these people that have written books.
My gosh. And, that's incredible. Like, what took us so long to connect, Malika? Oh my goodness. It's incredible. I mean, and like the other thing too that I think people have been mentioning to me was like, ask her about her karate background. And I was like, okay, I got to do that. So what kind of is that karate? If I'm not mistaken, right? And how did you initially get into that? I mean, you're so like diverse with the Miss Hawaii and in your career and in your family, the super mom and all the things, and they have karate and like how did that start for you?
Well, as far as diverse, I am a jack of all trades, master of none, but also remember that I have lived 38 years of life. So that's a lot of time to really do a lot of things. But karate started when I was 5. So that was definitely my parents. My mother had a bad experience where a man followed her into a restroom at an airport, and my dad saw it and walked in and prevented something bad from happening. But that moment is the moment that my mother cites for why she decided to put all of her children into martial arts, because she wanted us to be able to learn how to defend ourselves. Granted, have you done martial arts?
Yeah, and I actually started with karate when I was a kid, and then moved on to boxing, Thai boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and so on. So I love it.
Understand that it's so much more than self-defense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So martial arts, it's the discipline, it's the independence, the confidence that you gain, the perseverance. My dojo was not one of those dojos that gave out a belt every 2 months or even every year. You really had to work for it. This was a long-term commitment, and it was a long-term commitment. I trained in karate until I was about like 20 something years old, and then probably right around the time that I got into the Miss Hawaii and noon was when well, because I did it through college, and I had a class, and so I was teaching with the sensei there, and I was teaching the kids classes at that time. But then I got really busy with other things in life, and so I didn't do karate for about 10 years, and I just came back to it about 5 years ago, and my son started doing karate with me.
Wow, that's awesome.
It has been so awesome and so rewarding. And the funny thing is growing up, I mean, I don't want to say I didn't like it, but I was a kid being forced to go to martial arts. I didn't understand how much it would impact me as a person, how much it would help me to grow into the person that I am, how much my connection to my senseis, I mean, they were mentors to me, really meant to me. And so when I started doing karate again, and then had Jackson start joining me, he's 8 now, and he started when he was 6. I remember I didn't want to leave class. I would literally, class would end and I would cry in my car. It was so weird. It was this very weird moment of just realizing how much my career, I guess, in martial arts meant to me as a person, and that being able to share this with my child and for them to have the opportunity to grow and develop this discipline and this respect and this responsibility and this independence through martial arts, how much that meant to me as well. And when they do the dojo kun at my dojo in Hilo, which is where I was born and raised, it was called the dojo precepts.
Okay,
But
dojo precepts.
it's dojo kun for this. So I used to do warokai karate, is traditional Japanese, and then we found a traditional Japanese here. It wasn't warokai, but it's shotokan, which is similar, enough, which makes it actually kind of really difficult because the katas are named the same, but they're out of order, and
all
then
different order.
yeah, and like instead of the back stance, it's a cat stance, and like all these, it's like tiny little things. So when I go back into muscle memory, I forget everything.
It's like
and
it's
I die
different.
in the wrong place. Yeah.
Wow.
It's humbling. It's humbling to say the least.
See, and I think that's some of the qualities too, Malika, like the humility, and you're talking about the character development, the respect, the responsibility, the discipline, and the character development is so powerful, like what you're mentioning. And wow, I mean, so that was in Big Island, and then you're doing it here now?
Yep. It was in person, and it's been over Zoom for the last, we took a hiatus until he kind of figured it out, and then the last 6 months or so we've been over Zoom.
Wow. Where is this location at, the dojo, the karate?
It's in Kahului.
Oh, it's in Kahului.
Yep.
Oh, dang. Right on. So, people listening, man, do a martial art. It's a good way to get exercise.
It is for sure. I mean, that's basically, I know you had a question from one of your listeners about what do I do to stay fit? And
yes.
right now, that's it. I should do more. I was doing bar, which was like really great to balance out my karate, because doing bar helped me to be more flexible, really built up, these like smaller muscles. And I could see the difference in my karate training, that I would do better in karate training because of it. And also karate would help with bar, so it went both ways. I have to get back to doing bar to strengthen those small muscles. I've had a neck issue, which kept me out of karate for the last 2 weeks. And so my PT was like, yeah, you should start doing bar again. So I think I will.
Right on, bar. And what about for like the eating side? Are you doing anything like you're following something or certain principles or eating wise? Because it's so easy, right? Because our people tell, it's so easy to get sucked into all these different foods or structures, and this is going to be the $1 million question for our audience.
Well, I've been through the dieting type of thing and the food journaling and all of that, and that does not work for me. I did that as Miss Hawaii, and it was depressing, to be like, you can only eat like basically chicken with no seasoning and egg whites and whatever it was. I can't remember what my trainer put me on, but I had to write down everything that I ate, and I don't subscribe to that anymore. What we subscribe to is we try to eat local, fresh, and organic as much as possible. And so I think and then we can enjoy our food, and we can also eat other things, whatever we want, So I try to frequent farmers markets and local farms to buy their produce. I go to Kula Country Farms all the time, Maui bees. Haven't been to the farmers market in a while just because there's so many people during COVID. But I try to buy things that are fresh that I will then have to eat right away,
That's a good point.
And I make a lot of salads. So we try to do like Sunday salads. And so my salad has like roasted beets and green beans and carrots and olives and egg. And I mean, you name it. I love herbs. Herbs make everything better. So putting mint and lavender and parsley, cilantro, chives, all of that kind of stuff into your salad makes
Mhm.
it like I'm salivating talking about salad.
Talking about
That should say something about it. Um,
Uh,
so yeah, I really try to do that. And
Mhm.
then it allows me to and I probably should eat less sugar. That's the one thing, but then it allows me to have my ice cream and my candies and
Oh, there we
caramel.
go, dude. I'm a tiramisu guy, man. I know people listening, man. Like, oh, you're a trainer and this and that. Like, no, man. I love my tiramisus and my cheesecakes. Oh, dang. So people listening, cheesecake, tiramisu.
Yum. Yep.
Oh my goodness. And before we get into the questions from our audience and winding down, and I just want to just one more time, Malika, just acknowledge you for your authenticity and just how you are, man. Like you're just so energetic, and people are probably curious, what do you do to stay inspired, or what do you do to stay in that state or get into that state? Like what we're saying is not all the time, but when you get it on, you're on. Like you're like boom. And what do you do?
It is true that I'm not always in this state. That is definitely true. I struggle with that actually. I think that when I'm on my
Mm.
A game and I'm following, Jim Quick's 10 habits for geniuses, morning habits for geniuses, and doing what I know I want to do, it's a lot easier to then be energized. So when I make my bed in the morning and I brush my teeth with my left hand and I have my water and we do our meditation, when I do my journaling, when I do all of that stuff, which sounds like it takes a lot of energy, but I guess one thing just kind of leads to the other. I am
Mhm.
so energized throughout the day, and I feel like I have endless amounts of energy to give to my kids and my work and my school and everything. But unfortunately, that's not how every morning starts. And I've been injured, and so we've been off of that for a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
But even when I'm not injured, I definitely have days where I, I'm not able to achieve that level of energy and excitement and passion for the day or life. And I think that's totally normal, and that people really need to realize what I hear over and over again when I gather. We've been doing a lot of Zoom gatherings,
Mhm.
especially with other women, is people feel so alone. And
Mm.
I think that's why authenticity is so important to me, because I realize that I might carry some influence in the community and with my followers, or my even with my friends. And so I take that responsibility really seriously. And it's important to show our flaws and our struggles and how we overcome, but then also how sometimes we just don't overcome. We just sit in it, and we are not alone. And I hear that over and over again. Oh my gosh, it was so nice to hear that I'm not alone, that there are other
Mhm.
people that are just literally trying to survive the day, that there are other people out there that struggle with communicating with their partner, or mothering their children, or parenting their children, or eating right, or exercising, or being motivated. It helps people to hear that they're not alone with these struggles, and it helps them to um, then be able to tackle that head on. So I don't know if I even answered your question.
No, that's amazing, and no, I love tangents, and that's just incredible too, because you're so right about that, about spreading the awareness about like the other side. It's like the yin and yang, the opposite side, and I've checked myself into the ER multiple times for because I always preach like work hard, but for overworking and not taking care of myself. And my whole motto is fighting sickness with fitness, right? Get enough sleep, water, hydration, lemon, and the water, all this stuff. And I've checked in myself to the ER in the past for, and then I know some of the nurses. They were my previous clients, and then it was a moment of like, dang, okay, I gotta be open up about this, overworking and the 5 a.m. to 9, 5 to 9 p.m. and um, so that's the flip side. So I appreciate you sharing that, Malika. And I want to go to the question from one of our listeners. She said, Malika, love your videos on tips for traveling alone with an infant, as it's truly one of the best ones on YouTube that has helped me. I'm wondering, what do you do to continue balancing being a mom and also moving forward in your career and life? I'm a big fan. Mahalo.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much for that question. Balance, I think this is the question. This is the question that comes up a lot. I think I just mentioned it, but we did a Zoom 21 for 2021, and I threw it out to my
Mhm.
followers. And once I had 15 people, I pulled it off, and I just wanted it to be these women that like immediately knew that they needed inspiration and wanted to connect with other like-minded people. And that came up a lot. I mean, I don't think there was one woman in there
Wow.
that didn't struggle or want tips or felt they needed some kind of help with balancing
Hmm.
being a mother or life with career.
Yes.
And it's tough because I think it looks different for everyone.
Hmm.
Um, but getting in touch with your values, I would say, would be my answer. So, getting in touch with, okay, what do I want to put out into the world? Like, how do I want people to perceive me? And not being limited by your past, that maybe that's not how people perceived you in the past, right? I'm going, okay, I want to be respected. I want to be seen as someone who cares for people and who's nurturing, whatever it is, right? Whatever's on your list. And then from there, you can start to develop like, okay, well, what do I want in life? What makes me happy? And so you start to figure out, like,
Mm.
as you move through life or looking back on things that made you happy in life, what are some of the things that just make your heart, fill up your heart? For me, that's, I love to travel. I love to spend time with my kids. I love music, so making music is really important to me, and singing.
Mm.
So identifying these things that you can do in your life that brings you joy, brings togetherness, and kind of it centers all around those values that you've identified. So connecting with people,
Values.
togetherness, all of those things, authenticity, right? And then
Mm.
you mold your life into a semblance what of the things that you want in your life. So I think it was John and Missy Butcher, and it was so simple. It was something like, what do you want? Do that. That is just so
Do
simple.
that. There
And
we go.
it's not,
Boom.
yeah, right. It's not that simple. Clearly, it's not that simple, but that is where I started, was with kind of trying to identify, like, who do I want to be? Um, how do I get there? And then from there, everything else just starts to kind of fall into place. And also just recognizing that things won't be perfect. I mean, we're not striving for perfection here. There is no such thing as perfection. We're just striving for progress. So, okay, like,
Mm.
how can I be a better mom today? That's why we try to do this morning with routine. I think that is great. I want my kids to have habits that they are
Mm.
habits from now. They don't have to be like me, where I'm like, oh God, I got to do my habits. you know so I want to instill that in them. And when we do it together, I'm helping not only them to create habits, I'm helping our whole day, which then ends up helping me with balancing life and career
Mm.
and being a mom. So, it's a very loaded question. How do you balance motherhood and career? I have some goals that I'd like to
Mhm.
achieve.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm getting my graduate degree. I'm getting my master's
That's
degree.
right. You were saying yes.
I want to continue doing karate. I don't have a specific goal in mind, but my sensei wants me to
Mhm.
test for another black belt in their style, and I'm kind of like,
Dang.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready yet. But I'll keep trudging along and making my baby steps
Mhm.
and progress in that style. I do want to be the best mom that I can be. I want to be the best wife that I can be. I want to do my best at my job. And so, you know, I think the key there though is my personal best in the moment. So that's all I can expect of myself, is whatever my personal best in that moment is with those circumstances. That's why with my neck blown out, my personal best was there's all over the floor. Like, you know, the house is a disaster zone. It's a hurricane went through. We ate canned food. Everything came out of a can last night. Soup, foie gras, and asparagus. But you know what? We ate. And that was the best I could do in that moment. And it was delicious.
Exactly. That's awesome. My gosh, Malik. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You know, the realness to you. You know, like that damn man, like you're sharing so much and you're going in depth and behind the scenes, like behind the house actually, like what you just said, like the canned food, and you're just so real. And I think that's why people just click and, you know, vibe with you so well. So I want to just thank you again, Malika. Winding down to our last question, but this is one of the fastest 45 minutes. I just seem like, wow, I can't believe it's already towards the end of the 45 minutes, Malika. It's just so like back and forth, back and forth. And, you know, we're going to have you on again. People are going to be like, oh my God, Just, why didn't you ask this? Why didn't you ask that? And so, you know, I'm just, you know, so thankful that you're on and sharing with our audience. And the last question I love to always ask is, the book I wrote, Fighting Sickness with Fitness, when you see that, what comes to mind?
Fighting sickness with fitness. Well, health, just general health. You know, I think that's something that we take for granted. And this past couple of weeks has definitely highlighted that for me with my neck. And that, you know, most of the time, most people have two arms and two legs and can walk and breathe, and, you know, that we can't take these things for granted. We need to nurture our bodies to be able to not be sick, because something like this ends up snowballing, right? So my neck means I can't move. So I haven't worked out for 2 weeks. And now, because I haven't worked out for 2 weeks, maybe that leads to not being able to do, you know, I can't go for a run with my kids either. And I can't, you know, and it ends up snowballing out of control. But it's just as easy to scale that back and prevent all of that from happening. And how you prevent it is through health, fitness, and wellness. And that's, you know, it's not just physically fit. It's all linked. We all know it's all linked. Research shows, you know, mental, emotional, physical health are all inextricably linked. And so we need each of those things. And if you can't work out, it's okay. Just move. Like, you can give yourself the grace of not doing your high intensity interval training or whatever you know, your CrossFit or karate or whatever it is, right? You're swimming. Like, you can give yourself that grace that, you know what? I moved today. You know, I went for a walk. I did some yoga. I fit in 5 minutes, because 5 minutes is still progress.
Wow. You know, Malika, it's just amazing. And just came on the top of my head, like a closing question. I know that was the last question, but I gotta get you the book, Malika, Fighting Sickness with Fitness, because it talks about harmonizing the mind, body, spirit. What you're talking about, mind, body, emotion, and so I gotta get this book to you, Malika, after this. I'll get the address and everything. But if you could have a billboard, and that would spread all across of Hawaii, where everybody could see it, what would you have on it? It can be like a couple of words, like purpose, gratitude, or whatever, or it could be like a quote, or it could be a sentence, or what would you put on this big giant billboard for people to see, if everybody in Hawaii could see this?
I mean, there are so many. There are so many things. I've already mentioned, you know, practice makes progress. I think that one would be one, because of the fact that usually people say practice makes perfect. And I don't like that. I don't like it at all. But I used to say it before I learned practice makes progress from Jim Quick. You know, my children don't even know that phrase, practice makes perfect. They only know practice makes progress. And I remember my brother-in-law talking to my son, and they were working on something. And then my brother-in-law goes, practice makes, and Jackson goes, progress. And My
Progress.
brother-in-law sat back and he went, wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's really good. And so I like that one for the billboard just because I think it makes
Mm-hmm.
an impression on people, and then it's thought provoking and you think about it. But something like Spread Aloha is also really great. You know, I listened to Billy Kanoy. Oh, may he rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
His commencement address how many times yesterday, and he talks about how aloha is free. Aloha is free. You can give it freely, and that is our job as residents of this state, is to spread aloha. So spreading aloha would be one. And then I think the last one that I would maybe do is today is a journey. You know, people often talk about how life is a journey, right? But I think that perspective shift of saying today is a journey kind of highlights that, you know, we can, when you plan for things, really the way you get to the goal or whatever, the end of the journey, is through small incremental steps. And so focusing on today as a journey, like what can I do today, is so important.
My gosh, Malika, I could like just offer you, just sit with you for like 2 hours and just keep talking.
Joe Rogan style.
So yeah, like back and forth, and it's just so natural. And Malika, I want to just thank you so much for hopping on, and you know, appreciate you sharing what you're sharing. And where can people find you, for people listening? What's the best place for people to reach out and find Malika Dudley?
Probably I'm most active on Instagram, so at Malika Dudley on Instagram, and I am going to be starting a podcast, and so that will be a really, really cool place for people to see, I guess, maybe a different side of me too. It's called the Communification Podcast. It's my graduate.
I like that. Communification.
The beautification of communication. So I'm currently in grad school for communicology, which is the study of human communication. And I can't wait to be able to pick the brains of experts, but also tell authentic stories about the things that we struggle with communication wise, to give people access to that kind of scholarly information that really can help them to communicate better. So I'm super excited about that. I graduate this spring, and that's my project. Yep, that's my project. Watch it.
Well, please let us know like how we can help, and I know we can chat a little bit after the podcast. So yeah, once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys all so much for joining us on the Yanagida Podcast. Subscribe, click that subscribe button, share this video and message, and if this is on audio, share that. If it's on YouTube, share the video. Love you guys. Till next week, Monday. Out.